The alarm bells rang through the Earth Defense Station like thunder in space. Admiral Jake Morrison jumped from his chair and ran to the communication center. His boots made heavy sounds on the metal floor as he moved through the narrow hallways. The station was floating around the moon. Watching over Earth like a guard dog, Captain Lisa Parker was already at the control panel when Morrison arrived. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. She looked up at him with wide eyes. "Admiral, we have a message from outside our solar system," she said. "It's not from any human ship?" Morrison felt his heart beat faster. Humanity had been traveling to other stars for only 20 years. They had met some alien races, but most contacts were peaceful. This felt different. "Put it on the main screen," Morrison ordered. The large screen in front of them lit up. A creature appeared that looked nothing like a human. It had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed like small suns. It wore a uniform covered in strange symbols. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical. "I am Ambassador Zefkar of the Vorthan Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council," the alien said. "We bring official demands to the species called humans." Morrison stepped closer to the screen. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of Earth Defense Command. What do you want?" The alien's glowing eyes seemed to look right through him. "Your species has been observed and judged. You have spread to several star systems without permission from the Council. This cannot continue." "Permission?" Morrison asked. "We don't need permission to explore space." Ambassador Zefkar made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not friendly. "Every species in this galaxy follows Council law. You are no different. We have ruled the stars for thousands of years. We decide who goes where and when." Captain Parker moved to stand beside Morrison. She had studied alien cultures and knew this was serious. "What exactly are you demanding?" she asked. The alien touched something on his uniform. Words appeared on the screen in human language. Morrison read them and felt sick to his stomach. 50% of all Earth's resources must be sent to Council worlds immediately," Zefkar continued. "All human military forces must be destroyed. 2 billion humans must be relocated to work colonies across the galaxy. You have 72 hours to accept these terms." Morrison stared at the screen in shock. "You want half our planet's resources and 2 billion people as slaves?" "They will not be slaves," the alien replied. "They will be workers. This is how the galaxy operates. Younger species serve older ones. It is the natural order." "Natural order?" Morrison's voice got louder. "You're talking about taking people from their homes and families." "Your emotional responses are irrelevant," Zefkar said. "These are the terms. Accept them or face the consequences." Morrison looked at Captain Parker, then back at the screen. "What consequences?" "Total annexation of your species. Your worlds will be taken by force. Your people will be relocated anyway, but under much worse conditions. Many will die in the process." The screen went dark. The alien had ended the transmission. Morrison stood in silence for a long moment. The communication center was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Finally, he turned to Parker. "Get me Dr. Alex Turner," he said. "I need to know everything about this Galactic Council." 20 minutes later, Dr. Turner arrived at the command center. He was a thin man with gray hair who studied alien species. His hands were always dirty from working with alien technology and biology samples. "Admiral, I heard about the transmission," Turner said. "This is very bad news." "Tell me about this council," Morrison replied. Turner sat down at a computer and brought up star charts. "The Galactic Council has controlled most of this part of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. They have a simple system. Old species rule, new species serve." "How many species are we talking about?" Parker asked. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. They absorb new civilizations through intimidation and economic pressure. No species has ever successfully refused their demands." Morrison felt a cold weight in his stomach. "What happens to species that refuse?" "They get crushed," Turner said simply. "The Council has massive fleets and advanced technology. They can destroy entire star systems if they want to." Morrison walked to the window and looked out at Earth. The blue planet hung in space like a jewel. Cities sparkled on the night side. Billions of people lived down there, going about their daily lives. They had no idea that aliens were demanding half their world and 2 billion of their people. "What are our options?" Morrison asked. Turner shook his head. "Militarily, none. They have ships the size of cities. Energy weapons that can crack planets. We have destroyers and cruisers that would be like insects against their fleet. So we just give up?" Parker asked. "Hand over 2 billion people?" "The alternative is war against an enemy we cannot defeat," Turner replied. "Every species faces this choice eventually. They all make the same decision." Morrison turned back to face them. "Set up a secure communication link with Earth. I need to talk to President Kate Sullivan immediately." The next hour was filled with frantic activity. Morrison spoke with President Sullivan, Secretary of Defense Ryan Brooks, and General Pete Collins. The conversation was heated but short. Everyone understood the situation. "We don't have a choice," President Sullivan said over the communication link. "We can't fight the entire galaxy." "But we can't just give them 2 billion people," General Collins argued. "That's slavery, no matter what they call it." "The alternative is worse," Secretary Brooks replied. "If we refuse and they attack, billions could die." Morrison listened to the debate, but his mind was made up. He had spent his entire career protecting Earth and humanity. He would not hand over half his planet and 2 billion people to aliens, no matter how powerful they were. "I'll draft our response," Morrison said, ending the call. He sat at his desk and opened a new message file. The cursor blinked on the empty screen. Ambassador Zethkar was probably expecting a long message full of human emotion and pleading. He was expecting humanity to beg for better terms or more time. Morrison thought about his daughter. Back on Earth, he thought about all the children who would grow up as slaves on alien worlds if he accepted these terms. He thought about humanity's future among the stars. He typed one word, "No." Then he sent it. Ambassador Zethkar stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was massive, bigger than most human cities. Its walls were made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols glowed along the corridors. And the air smelled like ozone and machine oil. The ambassador stared at the message screen in confusion. One word blinked back at him. "No." "Computer, check the translation systems," he commanded. "Translation systems are functioning normally," the ship's artificial intelligence replied. "The message contains one word in the human language." "Translation." "No," Zethkar's forearms moved nervously. In 3,000 years of council expansion, no species had ever sent such a simple refusal. Usually, new species begged for more time or better terms. They sent long messages explaining their situation and asking for mercy. "This must be an error," he said to himself. "No species is this foolish." He called his communication officer, a being with blue skin and tentacles instead of arms. "Send another message to the humans. Tell them they may not understand the consequences of refusal." "Yes, Ambassador," the officer replied. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Morrison's message had reached every government and military leader on the planet. The response was immediate chaos. General Pete Collins stood in the Pentagon War Room. Surrounded by maps and computer screens, officers ran back and forth, carrying reports and orders. The general was a tall man with gray hair and scars from old battles. He had fought in 3 wars, but never against aliens. "How many ships do we have?" he asked Colonel Amy Foster, his chief of staff. 43 military vessels in the entire fleet," Foster replied. 18 destroyers, 12 cruisers, 8 frigates, and 5 battleships. Most are scattered across different star systems. Collins shook his head. "Against an entire galactic empire?" "It gets worse, sir," Foster continued. "Our intelligence says Council ships are 10 times larger than our biggest battleships. Their weapons can destroy planets." In orbit around Mars, engineer Ben Clark worked frantically in the shipyards. He was a short man with rough hands and grease stains on his uniform. For 20 years he had built ships for human expansion into space. Now he was trying to turn civilian vessels into warships. "We need every ship we can get," Clark told his Workers. Cargo haulers, passenger ships, mining vessels, everything. Strip out the civilian equipment and mount whatever weapons we can find. Sir, most of these ships were never designed for combat, one worker said. They'll fall apart if they take serious damage. Then we'll have to make sure they don't take serious damage, Clark replied. Or at least make sure they do some damage before they fall apart. On the Lunar Defense Station, Dr. Turner was working with his team to analyze everything they knew about Council technology. The laboratory was filled with alien artifacts and computer screens showing star charts. Look at these energy patterns, Turner said to his assistant, Helen Davis. Council ships use the same basic design across all their fleets. Davis was a young scientist with bright eyes and quick hands. She had spent years studying alien technology. That's strange, she said. Why would they use identical systems across hundreds of different species? Because it works, Turner replied. They've conquered everyone for thousands of years. Why? Change a winning system? But that might be their weakness, Davis said excitedly. If all their ships worked the same way, they might all have the same vulnerabilities. Turner looked at her with interest. What do you mean? Their weapons, their shields, their engines. If they're all standardized, then they all respond to the same frequencies and energy patterns. They're predictable. Turner smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Get me Lieutenant Commander. Steve Martinez. I want to run some tests. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Ambassador Zeth Carr received reports from across the galaxy. The news of humanity's refusal was spreading fast. Other species were watching with interest and fear. Ambassador, his communication officer said, we're receiving messages from Council worlds. They want to know why the humans haven't surrendered yet. Zeth Carr's glowing eyes dimmed with worry. Send a message to the High Council. Tell them we need immediate military support. Request the Third Fleet. The entire Third Fleet, sir? Yes, these humans are clearly insane. We need to crush them quickly before other species get ideas. The message traveled across space to the Council's capital world. Within hours, War Master Krelthuk received his orders. He was a massive creature, with thick armor plating and weapons built into his arms. He had conquered 47 worlds for the Council. Ready the Third Fleet, he commanded. We go to human space immediately. The Third Fleet was enormous. 500 ships of various sizes, from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. The fleet had never been defeated in battle. How long to reach the human homeworld? Krelthuk asked his navigator. 12 standard days at maximum speed, came the reply. Make it 10 days, I want to end this quickly. On Earth, President Kate Sullivan addressed the world. She stood behind a podium in the White House, with flags of all Earth's nations behind her. Her voice was calm but determined. My fellow humans, she began, we face the greatest challenge in our history. An alien empire demands that we surrender our freedom and our people. They want us to become slaves in our own galaxy. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But we are not slaves. We are free people. We chose to explore the stars as equals, not as servants. Today we stand together as one species, one people, one voice. Our military forces are preparing for the fight of our lives. Every ship, every weapon, every man and woman who can serve will defend our world. We may be outnumbered, but we are not outmatched in courage and determination. The President's words were broadcast to every human colony across the solar system. In mining stations on asteroids, in research bases on distant moons, in ships traveling between the stars, humans heard the same message. They would fight for their freedom. Admiral Morrison watched the President's speech from his command center. Around him, officers worked at computer terminals, coordinating the defense of Earth. Captain Lisa Parker stood beside him, reading reports from across the fleet. How long do we have? Morrison asked. Intelligence estimates 10 days before the alien fleet arrives, Parker replied. Maybe 12 if we're lucky, Morrison nodded. 10 days to prepare for war against an empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. 10 days to organize humanity's defense against enemies with superior technology and numbers. Send a message to all human ships, Morrison ordered. Tell them to return to Earth immediately. Every vessel, military or civilian, needs to be here when they arrive. Yes, sir, Parker replied. What about the colonies? Should we evacuate them? Morrison thought for a moment. No, if we run now, we'll be running forever. We make our stand. Here, at Earth, we show them that humans don't surrender. In the asteroid belt, Captain Roy Jenkins received the recall order aboard his destroyer, the Thunder Bay. He was a young officer with dark hair and quick reflexes. His ship was small and fast, built for patrol duty rather than major battles. Set. Course for Earth, he ordered his crew. Maximum speed. Sir, his executive officer said, what are we going to do against an entire alien fleet? Jenkins looked out at the stars through the ship's window. We're going to fight them. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity. The Thunder Bay's engines ignited, pushing the ship toward Earth, across the solar system. Dozens of other ships were doing the same thing. Humanity was gathering its forces for the battle. That would determine their future among the stars. As the ships converged on Earth, Ambassador Zethkar sent one final message to Admiral Morrison. You have made a terrible mistake. The Council. Fleet is coming. Surrender now, and some of your people may survive. Morrison deleted the message without reading it completely. He had more important things to do than listen to alien threats. He had a war to prepare for. The Council fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system like a dark cloud. War Master Krelthuk stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human home system through the main viewing screen. The third planet from the sun glowed blue and white, beautiful and peaceful. How many human ships do we detect? Krelthuk asked his scanning officer. 43 military vessels, War Master. Also detecting approximately 200 civilian ships that have been modified with weapons. Krelthuk laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 200 ships against 500. These humans are even more foolish than I thought. Captain Roy Jenkins was the first human to see the alien fleet. His destroyer, the Thunder Bay, was patrolling near Neptune when the massive ships appeared. The sight made his blood run cold. The alien vessels were huge, dark, and covered in weapons. The smallest one was twice the size of his ship. Contact Admiral Morrison immediately, Jenkins ordered. Tell him they're here. The message reached Earth in minutes. Admiral Morrison stood in his command center, watching the tactical display as red dots appeared on the screen. Each dot represented an alien warship. My God, Captain Parker whispered. There are so many of them. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. He spoke into his communication system. The enemy fleet has arrived. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. All civilian vessels fall back to defensive positions around Earth. The first battle began 12 hours later. Captain Jenkins led a squadron of 6 destroyers toward the alien fleet. His mission was simple: hit them hard and fast, then retreat before they could respond. Remember, Jenkins told his squadron, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to learn how they fight. The human ships moved in fast, their engines burning bright blue trails across space. They fired missiles and energy weapons at the alien scouts, small ships that were exploring the outer planets. The alien response was immediate and devastating. Energy beams lanced out from their ships, striking the human vessels with incredible force. The destroyer Braveheart exploded in a ball of fire, taking all 60 crew members with it. Evasive maneuvers! Jenkins shouted. Don't let them get a clean shot. The remaining human ships twisted and turned through space, trying to avoid the alien weapons. Their smaller size and speed helped them dodge some attacks. But the alien ships were too powerful. On the alien flagship, War Master Krelthuk watched the battle with growing annoyance. Why are they attacking in such a disorganized way? There's no strategy, no formation. Perhaps they are desperate, his tactical officer suggested. No, Krelthuk said slowly. They're testing us. They want to see how we fight. He was right. Back on Earth, Dr. Turner and his team were analyzing every piece of data from the battle. Lieutenant Commander Steve Martinez had installed special sensors on the human ships to record the alien weapons and movements. "Look at this," Helen Davis said, pointing to her computer screen. "Their energy weapons follow predictable patterns. They charge up for exactly 2.3 seconds before firing. And their ships always turn to the right when avoiding obstacles," Martinez added. "It's like they're programmed to respond the same way every time," Turner smiled grimly. "Because they are programmed. After thousands of years of easy victories, they've become predictable." The battle continued for 3 days. The human ships attacked in small groups, always retreating before the aliens could destroy them all. Each attack taught them something new about their enemy. Captain Jenkins proved to be a natural leader. His ship, the Thunder Bay, survived encounter after encounter by using unpredictable tactics. When alien ships expected him to retreat, he would charge forward. When they expected him to attack, he would suddenly change direction. "Jenkins is showing us something important," Admiral Morrison told his staff. "The aliens can't adapt to chaos. They're used to fighting enemies who follow standard military doctrine." "What does that mean for us?" Parker asked. "It means we throw out the rule book," Morrison replied. "We fight like humans, not like soldiers." The breakthrough came on the 4th day. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell was leading a fighter squadron against alien patrol ships when she discovered something crucial. Her fighters were small and fast, but their weapons were weak compared to the alien ships. "Try rapid frequency changes on your weapons," she told her pilots. "Don't let them adapt to our energy signatures." The results were immediate. The alien ship's shields, which had easily stopped previous attacks, began to flicker and fail. The fighters' weapons started penetrating the alien armor. "Admiral, this is Mitchell," she reported over the communication system. "I think we found their weakness. Their shields can't handle rapid frequency changes." Within hours, every human ship was modifying its weapons. Engineer Ben Clark worked around the clock to retrofit the human fleet with frequency-changing technology. The tide began to turn. Human ships that had been helpless against alien vessels suddenly found they could fight back. The aliens' technological advantage was still enormous, but it was no longer insurmountable. War Master Krelthuk felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. His ships were still winning battles, but they were taking damage, real damage. Some of his vessels had been destroyed by the small, chaotic human ships. "These humans fight like wild animals," he told his officers. "They have no honor, no discipline. Should we retreat and request reinforcements?" His second-in-command asked. Krelthuk's armored face showed anger. "Retreat? From these primitive creatures? Never. Send word to the Council. Tell them we need the 7th Fleet as backup." "The 7th Fleet, War Master? That's another 300 ships." "Yes, these humans are more dangerous than they appear. We will crush them with overwhelming force." The decisive moment came during the Battle of the Asteroid Belt. Captain Dan Miller, commanding the human battleship New York, found himself facing 3 alien cruisers. His ship was damaged, losing air and power. Most of his crew was dead or wounded. "Sir, we should retreat," his executive officer said. "The ship won't survive another hit." Miller looked at the alien vessels through the cracked viewing screen. They were moving in formation, confident and unstoppable, just like the Council had been for thousands of years. "No," Miller said quietly, "we're not retreating anymore." He turned to his helmsman. "Set collision course for the lead alien ship. Emergency power to engines." "Sir, that's suicide," the helmsman protested. "No," Miller replied, "that's victory." The New York accelerated toward the alien cruiser, its damaged engines screaming. The alien ship tried to turn away, but it was too late. The human battleship struck it at full speed, both vessels exploding in a brilliant flash of light. The explosion was so powerful it damaged the other 2 alien ships, sending them spinning out of control. For the first time in the war, human ships moved in to finish off disabled alien vessels. News of the collision spread through both fleets. The humans were inspired by Miller's sacrifice. The aliens were shaken by the humans' willingness to die in order to win. War Master Krelthuk received reports of the battle with growing concern. They deliberately destroyed their own ship to damage ours? Yes, War Master. The human captain chose to ram our cruiser rather than retreat. Krelfik was quiet for a long moment. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy willing to make such sacrifices. Most species surrendered when facing overwhelming odds. These humans seemed to fight harder when the situation became hopeless. Send a message to the High Council, he finally said. Tell them these humans are not like the others. They fight without fear of death. What are your orders, War Master? Krelfik looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of both fleets. The humans were still outnumbered, but they were no longer the helpless enemy he had expected. We continue the attack, he said. But we do it carefully. These humans are teaching us that even primitive species can be dangerous if they refuse to surrender. The message reached the Galactic Council within days. For the first time in centuries, a council fleet was reporting difficulties with a conquest. The High Council members, ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, began to pay attention to the small blue planet and its stubborn inhabitants. Ambassador Zethkar received new orders. The humans were to be crushed immediately, before their example could inspire other species. The Council was sending additional fleets to ensure victory, but across the galaxy, other species were already listening to reports of the human resistance. On worlds that had been conquered generations ago, people began to whisper about the species that had said no to the Council. The war was far from over, but humanity had already achieved something no other species had managed in 3,000 years. They had made the Council afraid. The largest fleet in galactic history approached Earth like a moving mountain of metal and death. High Counselor Thammer stood on the bridge of his command ship, the Eternal Judgment. The vessel was so massive it had its own gravity. Cities could fit inside its cargo bays. How many ships do we have now? Thammer asked his fleet commander. 800 vessels, High Counselor. The 3rd Fleet, the 7th Fleet, and the 1st Battle Group. We also have support ships from 12 member species. Thammer nodded. He was ancient, even by Council standards. His species had ruled the galaxy for 5,000 years. He had personally overseen the conquest of hundreds of worlds. Never before had the Council needed such a massive force for a single planet. These humans have embarrassed us long enough, he said. Today we end their rebellion. On Earth, humanity prepared for what everyone knew would be the final battle. President Kate Sullivan stood before a joint session of all Earth's governments. Leaders from every nation sat in the Great Hall, their faces grim but determined. My fellow humans, she began, the enemy comes with their full might. They bring ships beyond counting, weapons beyond imagination. They believe their numbers will break our spirit, she paused, looking at each leader in turn. They are wrong. We have something they lost long ago. We have the fire of freedom burning in our hearts. We have the courage to stand against tyranny, no matter the cost. Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every species in the galaxy that dreams of freedom. We fight for the right to choose our own path among the stars. Admiral Morrison coordinated the defense from his command center on Luna. The room was filled with officers from every branch of human military service. Captain Lisa Parker stood beside him, her uniform crisp despite days without sleep. Status report on our forces, Morrison requested. We have 31 military ships remaining, Parker replied. 147 civilian vessels. Converted for combat. Total crew, approximately 50,000. Against 800 alien ships, Morrison said quietly. Those are not good odds. No, sir. But we have advantages they don't expect. She was right. Dr. Turner's team had worked miracles in the past weeks. They had analyzed captured alien technology and found more weaknesses. Engineer Ben Clark had used this knowledge to create new weapons and defensive systems. The frequency disruptors are installed on all our ships, Turner reported. We can now disrupt their shields and targeting systems simultaneously. What about the new ramming protocols? Morrison asked. Ben Clark nodded grimly. Every ship has been modified with explosive charges. If a captain chooses to ram an enemy vessel, the explosion will be 10 times more powerful than a normal collision. Morrison felt a chill. They were talking about organized suicide attacks. But against such overwhelming odds, desperate measures. Were their only hope? Colonel Amy Foster entered the command center with urgent news. Admiral, we're detecting the alien fleet at the edge of the solar system. They'll be here in 6 hours. All stations, battle alert, Morrison announced. This is it, people. Today we find out if humanity deserves its place among the stars. The Council fleet moved through space like a dark tide. High Counselor Thanemer watched Earth grow larger on his screen. The blue planet looked peaceful and innocent, but he knew better. This world had produced the most stubborn species the Council had ever encountered. War Master Krelthuk, begin the attack, he ordered. The first wave of alien ships swept toward Earth's defenses. These were not the careful, probing attacks of before. This was total war, designed to crush human resistance in a single massive blow. Captain Roy Jenkins, now promoted to Commodore, led the human fleet's first response. His ship, the Thunder Bay, had been rebuilt 3 times during the war. It was covered in scars and patches, but it still flew. All ships remember what we learned, Jenkins broadcast to his fleet. Stay unpredictable. Don't let them get a clean shot. Make every bullet count. The battle began with a fury that shook the solar system. Alien ships fired energy beams that could crack planets. Human ships responded with swarms of missiles and chaotic attack patterns that confused the enemy's targeting. Systems. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell led her fighter squadron in a desperate assault on an alien battleship. Her small ships danced between the massive vessel's weapons, striking at weak points with surgical precision. Target their shield generators, she ordered. If we can drop their defenses, the big ships can finish them. Her fighters were like insects attacking a giant, but they were deadly insects. Using the frequency disruptors, they punched holes in the alien ship's defenses. The battleship New Jersey, one of humanity's remaining heavy vessels, finished the job with a barrage of missiles. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire, taking 1,000 Council warriors with it. But for every alien ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. War Master Krelthuk watched the battle with growing respect for his enemies. These humans fight like demons, he told his officers. Every ship we destroy takes one of ours with it. Should we pull back and bombard the planet from long range? His tactical officer suggested. No, Krelthuk replied. The High Counselor wants to crush them in direct combat. We must show the galaxy that resistance is hopeless. The battle raged for hours. Human ships used every trick they had learned. They rammed alien vessels, detonated their reactors as weapons, and fought with a ferocity that amazed their enemies. Captain Dan Miller's sacrifice had inspired a new tactic. Ships that were too damaged to continue fighting would make suicide runs against the largest alien vessels. Each ramming attack destroyed both ships, but it was a trade humanity was willing to make. Engineer Ben Clark watched the battle from an orbital station around Earth. His converted civilian ships were performing better than anyone had hoped. Cargo haulers had become missile platforms. Passenger ships had become fighter carriers. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can replace them, his assistant reported. Then we make the remaining ships count for more, Clark replied. Activate the final modification. The final modification was Clark's most desperate creation. Every human ship had been fitted with a special transmitter that could overload alien computer systems. It only worked at close range, and it would destroy the human ship using it. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, came the broadcast. Execute Protocol 7 for humanity. Protocol 7 was the code name for the final gambit. Every human ship would use its transmitter to disable nearby alien vessels, then ram them while their defenses were down. The response was immediate. Across the battle zone, human ships activated their transmitters. Alien vessels suddenly found their computers failing, their weapons shutting down, their shields dropping. In that moment of chaos, the human ships struck. Damaged destroyers rammed alien cruisers. Converted cargo ships collided with enemy battleships. The explosions lit up space like a new sun. High Counselor Thanemer watched in horror as his fleet took massive losses. What are they doing? He demanded. "They're sacrificing themselves to damage our ships," his tactical officer reported. "Every human vessel is becoming a weapon." "This is madness," Thainmer said. "No species fights this way." But humanity was fighting this way. Ships that could no longer fire their weapons used themselves as missiles. Crews that could have escaped in life pods chose to stay and ram the enemy. The tide of battle began to turn. The alien fleet was still larger, but it was no longer invincible. Human tactics were working. The Council ships, designed for easy victories against compliant enemies, could not adapt to such desperate and chaotic warfare, Admiral Morrison watched the battle from his command center. Human ships were dying by the dozens, but they were taking alien vessels with them. The mathematics of war were changing. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship," Captain Parker reported. "Put it through," Morrison ordered. "Hi." Counselor Thamer's image appeared on the screen. The ancient alien looked shaken. "Human Commander, I am prepared to discuss terms." Morrison stared at the screen for a long moment. "Terms? You came here to enslave my people. You threatened to destroy our world." "The situation has changed," Thainmar replied. "Your species has proven more capable than we anticipated. Perhaps we can reach an agreement." "The only agreement I'm interested in is your immediate withdrawal from human space," Morrison said. "That is not possible." "The Council does not retreat," Morrison smiled grimly. "Then you'll have to learn something new today." He cut the transmission and turned to his officers. "All remaining ships prepare for final assault. We're going to show these aliens what happens when you threaten humanity." The battle continued, but something had changed. For the first time in the war, the aliens were on the defensive. Human ships pressed their attack with renewed fury, driven by the knowledge that they were actually winning in the depths of space. The remnants of the human fleet prepared for one last push against the alien command ship. They had come too far to surrender now. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the battleship Enterprise, watching the massive alien command ship through the cracked viewing screen. The Eternal Judgment was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and armor that had never been defeated. Around it, the remnants of the Council fleet formed a protective circle. "How many ships do we have left?" Morrison asked Captain Parker. 12 military vessels, sir. 23 converted civilian ships, that's all," Morrison nodded. 35 ships against the most powerful vessel in the galaxy. The odds were impossible, but humanity had been fighting impossible odds from the beginning. "Signal all ships," Morrison ordered. "We're going in." The final assault began with a desperation born of necessity. Human ships charged toward the alien command ship, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. They knew most of them would not survive the next hour. Commodore Roy Jenkins led the attack in his battered destroyer, the Thunder Bay. The ship had been rebuilt so many times that almost nothing remained of the original vessel. But it still flew, and it still fought. "All ships, follow my lead," Jenkins broadcast. "We're going to punch a hole in their defenses." The human fleet split into 3 groups, attacking from different directions. It was a tactic they had perfected during weeks of desperate fighting. The aliens expected organized military formations, but humans fought like a pack of wild animals. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell's fighter squadron dove toward the alien ship's weapon systems. Her small craft were almost invisible against the massive vessel's hull, but their weapons could still do damage. "Target the main gun batteries," she ordered her pilots. "If we can disable their heavy weapons, the big ships can get closer." Her fighters swarmed over the alien vessel like angry bees. Using their frequency disruptors, they punched holes in the ship's defenses. Explosions bloomed across the hull. As human weapons found their targets inside the Eternal Judgment, High Counselor Thainmer felt his ship shake under the human assault. "How are they penetrating our shields?" he demanded. "They're using some kind of frequency weapon," his tactical officer replied. "It disrupts our defensive systems." "Then adapt our shields to counter it," Thainmer ordered. "We're trying, High Counselor, but they keep changing the frequency. Our computers cannot keep up with the random variations." Fanmer realized the truth. The humans were not using sophisticated technology. They were using chaos itself as a weapon. Their attacks had no pattern because they made no sense. Dr. Turner watched the battle from his laboratory on the lunar station. His team had discovered the aliens' greatest weakness. They were too organized. After thousands of years of easy victories, they had become predictable. The alien ship is trying to adapt to our frequency disruptors, Helen Davis reported. But we're changing them faster than they can respond. Because we're not following any logical pattern, Turner replied. We're just changing things randomly. Their computers can't predict random behavior. Lieutenant Commander Steve Martinez had one final surprise for the aliens. He had been working on a special weapon, something that could only be used once. But if it worked, it might end the war. Dr. Turner, the resonance weapon is ready, Martinez reported. But we need to get close to the alien ship, very close, Turner understood. The resonance weapon would use the alien ship's own structure against it, but it required a human ship to fly directly into the enemy vessel's docking bay. Who's going to deliver it? Turner asked. I am, Martinez replied. My ship is fast enough to get through their defenses. On the bridge of the Enterprise, Morrison received Martinez's message. The plan was simple and suicidal. Martinez would fly his ship into the alien vessel and detonate the resonance weapon inside their hull. Admiral, this is Martinez, came the transmission. I'm going in. If this works, their ship will tear itself apart. Morrison wanted to stop him, but he knew there was no other choice. Understood, Martinez. Good luck. The small human ship accelerated toward the Eternal Judgment, weaving between energy beams and missile explosions. Martinez's ship was hit multiple times, but it kept flying. War Master Krelthuk saw the human ship approaching. Stop that vessel, he ordered. It's heading for our hangar bay, but it was too late. Martinez's ship crashed through the alien hangar doors and exploded deep inside the massive vessel. The resonance weapon activated, sending vibrations through the alien ship's hull. The Eternal Judgment began to shake itself apart. The weapon used the ship's own massive size against it, creating structural failures throughout the vessel. Systems began failing all across the ship. Hull breach on decks 40 through 60, the damage control officer reported. Power failures in the main reactor chamber. We're losing atmospheric pressure. High Counselor Thamer felt his mighty ship dying around him. How is this possible? He demanded. The human weapon is using our ship's resonance frequency against us, his science officer explained. The bigger the ship, the more damage it causes. The irony was perfect. The Council's greatest strength, their massive ships, had become their weakness. The humans had found a way to make size into a disadvantage. As the Eternal Judgment tore itself apart, the remaining human ships pressed their attack. They rammed the surviving alien vessels, using their explosive charges to maximum effect. The space around Earth became filled with the wreckage of both fleets. Captain Dan Miller's sacrifice had taught humanity a new way to fight. Every human ship became a weapon. Every crew member became a warrior willing to die for freedom. Morrison watched as the last alien ships began to retreat. The Council fleet, reduced to less than half its original size, was pulling back from Earth. For the first time in galactic history, they were running from a battle. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship, Parker reported. War Master Krelthuk appeared on the screen. His armor was cracked and his breathing was labored. Human Commander, we are withdrawing from your system. Why? Morrison asked. Because you cannot be conquered, Krelthuk replied simply. You would rather die than submit? This is something we have never encountered before. The alien commander paused. You have won, humans. Not because your weapons are stronger, but because your will is unbreakable, the transmission ended. The surviving Council ships turned and left the solar system. Their long journey back to the galactic core beginning. Morrison stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, his officers began to cheer. But he felt no joy, only exhaustion. The victory had cost humanity dearly. Thousands of ships had been destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people had died. Sir, we're receiving messages from across the galaxy, Parker reported. Other species are asking about our victory. Morrison straightened his uniform. Tell them the truth. Tell them that humanity said no to tyranny and meant it. The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On worlds that had been conquered centuries ago, people began to whisper about the species that had defeated the Council. President Kate Sullivan addressed the Earth one final time. Today, we proved that freedom is worth any sacrifice. We showed the galaxy that no empire, no matter how powerful, can conquer the human spirit. But our victory is not complete. Across the galaxy, billions of beings still live under Council rule. They look to us now as an example of what is possible when people refuse to surrender. On the Council's capital world, the High Council met in emergency session. The ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia were afraid for the first time in centuries. How do we respond to this defeat? One counselor asked. We adapt, another replied. We learn from these humans. Or we destroy them completely, a third suggested, but they all knew the truth. The damage was already done. The word no had been spoken and heard across the galaxy. Other species were already beginning to question Council rule. Ambassador Zeth Carr, his ship limping back to Council space, sent his final report. The humans cannot be conquered by force. They are too willing to die for their freedom. If we continue to fight them, we will only inspire more rebellions. The Council's 1,000-year reign was beginning to crumble. On distant worlds, species that had submitted to Council rule for generations began to organize resistance movements. The human example had shown them that even the mighty Council could be defeated. Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the lunar station. Looking out at Earth, the blue planet was scarred by the war, but it was still free, still human. What happens now? Captain Parker asked, joining him at the window. Now we help others find their freedom, Morrison replied. We show them that one word can change everything. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council's empire was breaking apart, species after species following humanity's example. The word no had become a rallying cry for freedom throughout the stars, and somewhere in the darkness of space, new human ships were being built, not for conquest but for liberation. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, to be the voice that spoke for all who dreamed of freedom. The war was over, but the revolution had just begun.